Good evening, everyone. My name is Edward Crossland and I'm the Acting Mayor of the City of Yarra. Yarra City Council acknowledges the Wurundjeri Wurrung people as the traditional owners and true sovereigns of the land now known as Yarra. We acknowledge their creative spirit, Bunjil, their ancestors and their elders. We acknowledge the strength and resilience of the Wurundjeri Wurrung people who have never ceded sovereignty and retained their strong connections to family, clan and country despite the impacts of European invasion. We also acknowledge the significant contributions made by other Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people to life in Yarra. We pay our respects to elders from all nations here today and to their elders past, present and future. In attendance today we have Councillor Di Vietri, we have Councillor Jolly, we have Councillor Mohammed, we have Councillor Landis and we have Councillor Stone. Councillor Nguyen and Councillor Wade are both on leave of absence at the moment, and Councillor O'Brien is an apology. Cool. All right. In accordance with Section 35(4) of the Local Government Act 2020, Council grant absence for Councillor Gabrielle Di Vietri for all meetings held from 3rd of August to 27 November 2020 inclusive. Do I have a seconder for that proposed motion? Councillor Landis. Thank you. Councillor Di Vietri, would you like to briefly speak to this?
Thank you, Acting Mayor. Yes, I would just like to announce that I will be taking a leave of absence from my councillor duties at Yarra City Council, effective as of tomorrow, and so that covers all the meetings from that date due to my candidacy in the upcoming state election. Taking leave of absence is not required under the Local Government Act or under Council's policies. However, it is common practice for candidates in similar circumstances. I've chosen to do so in the interests of maintaining community confidence, and I will also voluntarily forego my councillor allowance during this period of leave. I have advised the Mayor, the Acting Mayor, the CEO and the Municipal Monitor of my leave arrangements. Thank you for allowing me to speak.
Thank you, Councillor Di Vietri. I'll now put it to the vote for all those in support.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, Councillor Jolly.
Thank you. I'll be voting for this motion. I think it's very good what Councillor Di Vietri has done, but my question is very simple, and if you want me to wait until questions that I notice, I'll do that because you're the chair, not me. But I've noticed today that we received an email late this afternoon that within 24 hours of the leave of absence completing for Councillor Di Vietri, or 48 hours from the state election, we'll be rushing to a ceremonial meeting. In other words, we'll be electing the Mayor with 8 councillors. According to the Age this week, Councillor Di Vietri is the hot favourite, and good luck to her to win this election. And within a week or two, we'll have a countback. In other words, a 9th councillor will be elected. It looks really shifty. It looks like we're trying to have this vote before the replacement candidate, councillor, is being held. Is there any reason why we have to have the ceremonial meeting 48 hours after the state election? Couldn't we wait a week or two? Because we've had 2 countbacks in recent terms. And it just makes it look, I mean, we're already under the eyes of Victoria without putting a target on our head. So my question through you, Mayor, is maybe to the CEO, I guess, and that's my question.
Would you be able to take this at this time?
I will start, and then I'll be open to deal with that. Thank you for the question, Councillor, and I'll preface it by saying...
Sorry, CEO, just your microphone.
Thank you for the question. Certainly there's nothing in the planning arrangements for any council meeting, ceremonial or otherwise, that is intended to be shifty, which is why I think you're asking the question just to clarify that. Council, the date is set by the expiry of the term, and so the election of the Mayor this time, November last year, this coincides with this date, so it is later than normal, but it is as a consequence of the timeframes for last year's mayoral election. I'll ask Mr Gilbert to expand on that. Ultimately, it's going to require a council resolution to set the date. So we're just putting time in the diary today as a holding point.
Once Mr. Gilbert's finished, can I have just a quick follow-up question?
Thank you, CEO. The Local Government Act sets out that councils must hold their mayoral election as near as possible to the 1 year period after the mayor is elected. So that's really what has governed the date at this stage. So we'd have to deal with that from the starting point. Yeah.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor, my follow-up question, my final question, is again to the CEO or to Mr. Gilbert, depending on what the CEO wants to do, is that yes, that is true. It has to be between, close to the 12-month period, and I understand that, but it's not an exact science. And I would ask you to consider the point that I'm making before you bring it to council in due course. If you could, would that be an acceptable request?
I would always give those sorts of matters consideration, but thank you for highlighting them. Thanks.
Councillor Stone?
Just another question for me. We haven't actually got the motion on the screen, but was there an end point nominated? We normally don't have open-ended leave. We have a leave from A to B.
Yes, there is. It's from the 3rd of August to the 27th of November inclusive.
It wasn't on the screen then, it wasn't said, so thank you. Yes.
Are there any further questions at this point in time? Yep.
May I just ask that the minutes record that the leave is unpaid?
Thank you. I'll now put it to the vote as per the motion that is on the screen. All those in favour of granting leave? And that is carried unanimously. Thank you. I'll now move on to announcements. The first is in regards to Uncle Archie Roach. On behalf of my fellow councillors in the City of Yarra, I would like to acknowledge the recent passing of a prolific Aboriginal singer, songwriter and truth teller, Archie Roach, AM. Archie was a Gorandidja Mara and Bunjaralang elder and was born in Murralampa in regional Victoria. He was a revealed voice in the stolen generations, sharing his experiences through music and song, and was the first ever singer-songwriter to win a Human Rights Achievement Award for his song, Took the Children Away. Archie had a strong connection to Yarra and contributed greatly to the local community, and was a regular performer at local events and music festivals over the years, like Yarra's Smith Street Dreaming. Archie's passing is a significant loss to Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander communities, the Yarra community and all Australians. Our flags are flying at half-mast across our municipality this week, and Yarra extends our deepest condolences to Archie's family, friends and the Aboriginal community during this difficult time. Archie once said of Yarra, "I found my family on the streets of Fitzroy. It's also where I found my voice and was the backdrop to so many of my music and careers and stories." Now on to Councillor Tony Driscoll. In further news, Council was saddened to learn of the recent passing of the Mayor of the Northern Grampian Shire, Councillor Tony Driscoll. Councillor Driscoll has been a councillor since October 2012 and held the role of Mayor on 3 occasions, which is a huge achievement. The community of councillors across Victoria is a small one, and we have here at Yarra send our condolences to Councillor Driscoll's family and to our colleagues at the Northern Grampian Shire. Pride Street Party. I'd also like to acknowledge and warmly welcome the Victorian Government's very recent announcement that Pride Street Festival will be returning to Collingwood and Fitzroy in the City of Yarra in 2023. This builds on the inaugural event, which was held early this year, which brought thousands of people to the streets of Fitzroy, Collingwood, and to celebrate the LGBTIQA+ community, and to commemorate the 40th anniversary of the decriminalisation of homosexuality in Victoria. I think I speak here on behalf of all my councillor colleagues tonight by saying this is super exciting. We're really looking forward to working with the Victorian Government in hosting this event and bringing it to life. So very excited on that front. This now brings us to declarations of conflict of interest. Do any councillors have a conflict of interest in a matter being considered tonight? Councillor Landis.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I have a conflict of interest in relation to item 8.1, Draft Planning Scheme Amendment 291 Yarra, Bridge Road and Victoria Street built form provisions. I have interest in properties in Bridge Road affected by the amendment, which may or may constitute a general conflict of interest under the Local Government Act 2020.
Thank you. Do we have any other declarations of conflict of interest?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Whilst I'm not a decision maker this evening, I think it prudent that I declare a conflict of interest in relation to the Planning Scheme Amendment C291 also. My home is located just outside the boundary of the amendment, and so I'd like to declare a conflict, and I'll be leaving the meeting during the consideration of this item. Thank you.
Thank you both. Are there any further conflicts of interest? No. Thank you. This then brings us to item 5, confidential business reports. There were no confidential business this evening. Number 6, confirmation of minutes. That the minutes of the council meeting held on Tuesday, 12 July 2020 be confirmed. I have a mover in Councillor Jolly and a seconder in Councillor Mohammed. All those in favour? And that is carried unanimously. This now brings us to public question time. First off, thank you. Firstly, I'll invite people who have registered to speak to their questions first, and then I'll invite anyone else that would like to make submission this evening. When your turn comes, please come up to the microphone and switch it on and state your name for the record. If you're here on behalf of a group, explain the nature of the group and how you're able to speak on their behalf. When your turn comes to you, please direct the question to myself. Don't make statements or engage in debate. Don't raise operational matters, and don't ask questions about matters listed on tonight's agenda. And please seek to not repeat questions that have previously been asked if possible. You have up to 5 minutes to ask your question, although you don't need to utilise all of that time. If we're unable to answer your question tonight, we will take it on notice, which is standard practice, which means we will take note of your question and contact you afterwards with a written response. If we don't have your contact details, please, if you haven't already provided them, please do leave them for us, so our staff will be able to get back in touch with you. Our responses to questions that we've taken notice on will also be published on our website alongside the minutes of this meeting. Okay, first of all, Anastasia.
My name is Anastasia Fokianos. I'm a house captain and a Year 10 student at Alphington Grammar School. As a leader, I'm here to represent my peers and the Alphington Grammar community, voicing the ideas and concerns about the removal of the school gate, as they feel that the Yarra City Council has failed to do so. I have two younger siblings, with the youngest being still in primary school, and this has been a matter we have discussed in my family on many occasions. In the meeting of the 5th of October 2021, in which discussion was made to remove the gate, the discussion, photographs and maps provided to the council on the physical gate, when the real issue was the land behind the gate, not the gate itself. Your Have Your Say webpage, which gathered public opinion, mentioned the following. We're considering the eastern section of Old Heidelberg Road is to be used. Currently, the eastern section of Old Heidelberg Road is being used exclusively by Alphington Grammar, which is factually incorrect, as the members of the public entered other than the COVID lockdown. I refer to the item 11.5 that was tabled during the meeting of October 5th, 2021, which included 2 photographs. As I was not able to attach these photos, for ease of reference, I have hard copies. Can these please be circulated now? Acting Mayor, why were only 2 photos of Old Heidelberg Road tabled during the council meeting, that is pictures of the gate on the road facing west, when the real issue was the road facing east? Why were there no photos of the road behind the gate, including the unsealed section near the creek?
Great, thank you very much. Thank you so much, first off, for making your submission tonight. I really appreciate taking the time to do so. The Council's consideration to the subject arose from community complaints that the unauthorised gates of Old Heidelberg Road were frequently locked and thus prohibiting public access to the public road reservation down to the creek reservation. The questions presented was specifically open questions as the Council was seeking feedback from the community comments on this subject. The public area is a non-constructed road reservation open area that has been used by community over many decades to eat shop, casually walks, jogging, to take dogs for a walk, etc., down to the creek and back. Whilst the Council is required to monitor the condition of constructed roads, the non-constructed area is not so required to be inspected. And it's also noted that the reference road reservation area is open and directly accessible by student visitors to school. Did you have a further question?
Yes, I do. Thank you, Acting Mayor. My second question. The photos of the eastern section of the road that I've provided accurately reflect the current condition of the land. As students, we are not allowed to use that path at any time due to how dangerous it is, not even during fire drills nor evacuation drills. Acting Mayor, what are your comments when you see the photos and the dangers that this can have on students? And the general public.
Cool, thank you. You'll find I've just responded to that collectively with the prior response, but I hope that will suffice. Thank you. Next we have Greg Smith.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, councillors, for the opportunity to speak tonight. My name is Greg Smith and I serve as a volunteer for the endorsed Liberal Party candidate for the state electorate of Richmond, Mr Lucas Moon. Upon reviewing the council's policy on political advertising and campaigning on council-controlled land and assets, document reference D16/129355, the Lucas Moon campaign believes that it is too restrictive, too expensive, and fundamentally undemocratic. The policy only allows operation at a single location on a single day for a cost of $71. The policy also states that multiple locations and times will not be considered. We're trying to cover a very large area consisting of the suburbs of Richmond, Cremorne, Burnley, Abbotsford, Collingwood, Clifton Hill and Fitzroy North. The Council's own policy was last approved on the 31st of August 2016. Its review cycle is 4 years and was due to be reviewed on the 31st of August 2020. The current policy is therefore just shy of 6 years old. We would like to make a proposal to Council that would be beneficial to all election candidates, including those from registered political parties and independents. Given that election campaigning...
Point of order, Mayor. Sorry, excuse me. I just wanted to jump in there just in case this is a statement and just to note that this is an opportunity for questions.
Okay, yes, there's a question at the end of this. Given that election campaigning is conducted over a relatively short period of time in a 4-year election cycle where no commercial sales or fundraising activities occur, We propose that 1. Election candidates register with the council prior to an election following registration with the VEC. 2. Campaigning activities are restricted to 3 hours at any one location on any single day and for the duration of the VEC's operating hours at pre-poll locations. 3. Are restricted to 6 locations on any single day. 4. That council waives the fees to obtain a temporary public space permit. 5. Activities do not block footpaths, driveways, disrupt businesses or council services. And 6. Activities cease at 6 p.m. on election day. Until the old policy is reviewed and approved, and given that the state election is less than 4 months away, would the council adopt this proposal as a trial? Thank you.
Thank you, Greg, for your submission. We will have to take that submission on notice and come back to you in due course. So thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Jolly.
Through you to Mr Gilbert. This is the first state election campaign I've been involved in, so it's beautiful to watch it from afar. And I can't speak for Councillor Devetri's campaign because I haven't been following it that closely, but I do know that the Labor Party have been campaigning outside Woolworths on Smith Street. And I just wonder, this person's candidate is saying that they got a fine or a fee charge. Is this across the board? Because if you're going to do it for one, you've got to do it for everybody. And you know, it's all over Facebook that the ALP are campaigning outside Woolies, and good luck to them. I used to do that. Are you taking a treat everybody equal approach, or is it just these guys that are getting pinned?
Thank you for the question, Councillor Jolly. I'll have to take that on notice because I'll have to check with the enforcement staff to see what they might have been involved with. So if I may take that on notice, please.
Can I just reassure councillors and everybody in the gallery that, of course, officers in the organisation do not distinguish between parties or affiliations, and so the rules are applied equally. Having said that, it could be that not everybody applies for permits for the things that are required, and then it becomes a compliance matter. But certainly, if there was a decision, for example, to waive fees, they would be applied universally. There would be no distinguishing. So thanks. I agree. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have anyone else that would like to make submission tonight? Ask a question, yes. Yes, please approach. And just a reminder, you have 5 minutes to ask your question. You don't need to use all that time. And please seek to not repeat questions that have already been asked. Thank you so much.
My name is Ethan Maratheftis, and I've been a part of Alphington Grammar all my school life, as have my 2 younger brothers. I'm also a school captain and proud to represent the students as young as 3 right through to year 12. I will also be voting in the next upcoming election, along with my peers and those who we are connected to through social media. When elected school captain, I took a pledge to do right by those who have elected me and by my school. I am proud to represent the school and the values that it upholds, which include integrity and responsibility. I've learnt that the standards you walk by are the standards you accept. In fact, the senior students are so invested in this case that we spent several lessons in English writing persuasive pieces based on the facts surrounding the redundant part of Old Heidelberg Road. Integrity not only means doing and saying what is right by the community that you represent, but also by using the systems and processes at your disposal to protect those very same people. As I read in Yarra Council's council guidelines on your website, and I quote, "We all have a responsibility to ensure that there is transparency in decisions to achieve the best outcomes for the community, including future generations." Therefore, I feel compelled to speak for all those that don't have a voice at our school, for those students that have additional needs and whom a gate is necessary, not a luxury, such as my younger brothers, and for the students that have been in lockdown for the last 2 years, only to come back to campus and face the prospect of a gate that will divide the school in two and compromise our sports field and program. Acting Mayor, my first question is simple. When there is no access to the Darebin Creek or anywhere else, why open the gate, put students at risk and disrupt the learning environment of Alphington Grammar students? Thank you.
Thank you very much for your submission tonight. I know we have made responses similar to this at previous council meetings, but we will come back to you and take this on notice and come back to you specifically. So thank you again.
And for my second question, why does the council continuously say the decision about Old Heidelberg Road, the Old Heidelberg Road matter, was due to overwhelming community response, 340 people, of which 63% of this 340 all acknowledge the intended use is not suitable? On the contrary, our school community consists of over 2,000 stakeholders, of which none got a voice. Alongside this 2,000, an additional 3,000 people responded and signed the online petition, hence highlighting the fact that this is an issue which people do care about and do not agree with the idea that members of the public should have access to the road. 5,000 is definitely more than 340. Thank you.
Thank you. Again, we'll have to come back to you on that, so we'll take that on notice. Thank you so much. Do we have anyone else that would like to ask a question this evening? Yes.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Isabella Cohn. I am one of the vice captains in Year 12 at Alphington Grammar School. I came from America as my family made the deliberate choice to relocate to a safer country, as my younger sister's school life and mine had been filled with weekly occurrences and news across the nation of school invasions. Practice drills and lockdowns had become the norm, as tragically schools have become easy targets and shootings had become all too common. My family made the decision to come to Australia from the United States of America to what they believe is a safer country. Yet I witnessed a man, enraged with anger, enter my school with a grinder to remove a gate in front of the television cameras while students were in attendance, in which caused the school to go into lockdown. This brought back memories of what my sister and I thought we left behind. As a student body, we have all been watching the saga of the Yarra Council's decision to open the disused and redundant part of Old Heidelberg Road. We have been watching the meetings online and have been reading your minutes. Naturally, we have been discussing this matter in class and at home with our parents. Nothing about the council's decision seems rational. My peers and I do not perceive it to be a well-considered decision. For us, it holds little to no merit and no purpose that benefits the whole community, of which Alphington Grammar is a significant portion. Acting Mayor, my question is, can you explain to me tonight the reason why you would not reverse what I and my peers consider a risky situation that puts the school community in harm's way? Thank you.
Thank you very much for your submission tonight. Again, I'll have to take that on notice and we will come back to you in due course. So thank you.
Thank you. My second question. If you will not revise this decision, what specific considerations have council members given to children's human rights and child safety matters in which are referred to in the health and child safety guidelines? Thank you.
Thank you once again. We'll have to take that on notice and come back to you in due course. So thank you. Do we have anyone else that would like to ask a question this evening?
My name is Sam Karanius and I'm the current Vice Captain at Alphington Grammar School. I am also a local resident and I've lived in the community for over 15 years. I have a dog, an Australian Kelpie named Jessie, who I regularly walk through the local parklands. I've never felt the need to take my dog for a walk through the school grounds of Alphington Grammar School, or any other school for that matter. There are many other wonderful public parklands, including designated leash-free areas near my home that I and many others in my community use on a regular basis. I will be voting in the first time for the upcoming election, as will my classmates and friends who are all connected on social media. We are all interested in understanding more about the people for whom we'll cast our vote. In the media, we're all reading about my council for all the wrong reasons. I'm disillusioned that the reopening of the unmade and flood-prone part of Old Heidelberg Road caused a division in my local community. So I seek to understand the issues about public access to a road that has no purpose and no function, other than to allow a group of dog owners access to the school ovals. Private land, no bike rider can get through, no one can cross the creek or get to Sparks Reserve, or anything of any value to us local residents. My parents and ratepayers are spending hard-earned money that should not be spent on decisions that are not sound. The decision to remove the gate and enable public access does not give me any comfort that my council knows the area as well as they should, since what is now accessible is of no value to the whole community. Acting Mayor, what comfort can you provide me and my generation as first-time voters that the decisions that matter most to the youth, such as child safety, are well understood and considered by this council?
Thank you for your submission. I do believe that we have touched on a similar matter in response to previous questions, but again, we'll take this on notice and come back to you in due course. Thank you. Councillor Stone.
Can I just ask Sam a question? You said people are spending hard-earned money. What is costing?
It's ratepayers' money to upkeep the school community and the local community parklands.
I see. Okay,
Yeah.
thanks.
Thanks.
Do we have anyone else who would like to ask a question?
My name is Evan Belters, and I am a student at Alphington Grammar and a keen sportsman. I too will be a first-time voter in this area. I've been a student at the school for all of my secondary years and have experienced firsthand the impact the bike path has had on the school oval size and orientation. On behalf of all the students who play sport on the Alphington Grammar ovals, I am here to highlight the impact of your decisions on our own sporting facilities. The impact of council decision made in October 2021 has enormous negative impact for the day student, which number some 200 primary and 400 secondary students, and on 10 other secondary and 8 other primary schools who rely on our facilities for inter-school sports. I'll highlight a couple of key points. When land was acquired from the school to build the path along the creek, our school oval was impacted. The oval was realigned to accommodate the trail and continue to have our full-size sporting oval. There was an in-principle agreement that AGS would use a section of the road to compensate for the land lost from our oval due to the path. Due to the area being flood-prone, significant funds were spent by the school to rectify drainage issues on the sporting field and to bring it to a standard so students would not sustain injuries and excess water could run off into proper drainage systems. The maintenance team spent a good part of their morning picking up dog droppings on our sports field so that our early morning sports trainings teams did not have to step into it and then bring it back into the showers and the classrooms. The primary play area with tan bark is littered with dog droppings, despite the signs asking those who enter to keep dogs out. Yarra Council's decision to open the gate and the impact it has on the play area and our sporting facility is significant. Your open space strategy, where you highlight the importance of outdoor activity on health and well-being, seems to be at odds with Council's decision, which now will restrict our ability to use our sporting grounds for proper training and matches. Acting Mayor, what are you going to do to rectify the issue we now all face? Thank you.
Could you please provide a little bit more clarity in terms of what is the issue you're wanting there?
The issue is resolving around the loss of our sporting ovals for inter-school sport. So the loss is other schools not being able to use our facilities, and also the loss of our own school not being able to use our soccer pitch and oval due to the area bounded by the old Heidelberg Road space.
Thank you for the further clarity. Once again, we'll have to take this on notice, but I really appreciate you taking the time to make submission tonight.
Thank you.
Do we have anyone else that would like to ask a question? Oh, there's two people coming up, so.
Hi, my name is Judy Salem, and I'm a Year 10 student at Alphington Grammar School. Today, I originally just attended to listen in on what the council had to say in regards to the school fence at our school, but after hearing the responses to some of the other students' questions, I wanted to ask some questions of my own. So, as my other peers have highlighted, the removal of the fence has caused great insecurity with a lot of the students at our school and has caused many to fear for their safety, which is of high concern to me as I do have a younger brother attending as well. So my first question to the council and the acting mayor is, has there been any consideration of students and perhaps their voice or their opinions on the matter as this school gate pertains to the students?
Once more, I'll have to take that on notice, but thank you. I anticipate there's a follow-up question.
Yeah, thank you for your response. My follow-up question was just to ask if there has been any sort of consultation with the school or any students regarding the fence, and if there's any possibility for future consultation with the students or other school members.
Thank you. I'll now defer to my officer here, Ivan Gilbert.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you for your question. In terms of further discussion, there has been a meeting arranged. It is organised now. The Mayor of the city has been approached by the principal of the school, and a meeting has been set up in about a week's time when the Mayor returns from holidays with a number of council representatives, and will be meeting with the school principal.
Thank you for your responses.
Thank you very much.
Oh, there we go. Sorry, I'll start again. Good evening, councillors and acting mayor. My name is Max White. I'm the lead school psychologist at Alphington Grammar, speaking on behalf of Alphington Grammar. Now, the Victorian government introduced 11 new child-safe standards that came into effect on the 1st of July 2022. The Commission for Children and Young People, as well as Schedules 1 and 2 of the Child Wellbeing and Safety Act 2005, clearly states that organisations who must comply with the standards include both local councils and schools. As such, both Yarra Council and Alphington Grammar School have shared responsibility for child-safe matters under the relevant legislation. Section 13 of Ministerial Order number 1359, that covers the implementation of child-safe standards, clearly states that relevant organisations, and I quote, must ensure that physical and online environments promote safety and well-being while minimising the opportunity for children, young people and students to be harmed. Furthermore, the new Child Safe Standards clearly states that in complying with Child Safe Standard number 9, an organisation must, at minimum, ensure risk management plans consider risks posed by organisational settings, activities and the physical environment. Now, I wrote to Yarra Council, care of Ivan Gilbert, on the 23rd of May 2022, raising my concerns about the risk that removing the gate posed to our students, some of whom have disabilities and all of whom cross Old Heidelberg Road multiple times per day. I received a generic response directing me to Yarra Council's statement on the removal of the gates, which states that child-safe issues are not of concern because, and I quote, "the gate is already open before school starts until approximately 9 p.m. every day." Now, this is factually incorrect. The gates were always shut during the school day for the very reason of protecting the students crossing Old Heidelberg Road. So, my two questions to you, Acting Mayor, therefore are, do you agree that Yarra Council has shared responsibility for the safety of the children at Alphington Grammar School and that the decision to open up the gates is contrary to your legislated responsibility to minimise environmental risks to children?
Thank you very much. I believe we have responded to a question very similar to this previously, but of course we will come back to you and take this on notice and respond in the near future. Thank you.
Okay. And my second question is, in coming to the decision to remove the gate, was a child-safe risk assessment undertaken as required by Child Safe Standard 9? And if so, could I please obtain a copy of this risk assessment?
Once more, we'll have to take that on notice and come back to you in due course. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Good evening, Acting Mayor and Councillors. My name's James Baker. At the last council meeting on the 12th of July 2022, it was clear that the Mayor, Ms Wade, was either not interested in answering questions put to her by Alphington Grammar School teachers, staff and parents. Either that or she was just unable to answer the questions, but it seems, Acting Mayor, you may be in the same boat as her. Ms Wade's catchphrase was, "We'll take that on notice and get back to you." Again, we hear that tonight. In fact, many of the questions that have been asked weren't answered at all, or were answered in such a way that don't answer the question asked. In fact, including one of my questions last week that was asked, and when I say last week, the last meeting, and nobody has bothered to contact me or respond to those questions, as you've said would happen on many occasions tonight. And yes, I did leave my details. But I'm sure that you will get back to me in relation to this question, because it is a very, very important and interesting one, and I hope you take it very, very seriously. I have been provided with internal council working documents regarding the decision to reopen the gate and fence at Old Heidelberg Road. I can assure you as Acting Mayor that these documents will blow the lid off this entire issue. My question to the Council tonight is this: would you like me to start asking questions about these documents at the next Council meeting? Or would you prefer that I leak this information to the media in the lead up to the next state election?
Point of order. Point of order.
Point of order.
There is one. Point of order.
There is one alternative option.
Sir,
and that's
if you could please pause.
To take this parent group seriously.
If you could please
answer
pause.
our question. And
sir,
because we can't have
can you please pause? This is highly inappropriate. You've been asked on several occasions to please pause and show a bit of respect. It would be appreciative if you could listen to that. Thank you.
There is an alternative option.
Please hold.
Thanks. If I might, Deputy Mayor, I think it's important to remind everybody present that question time and a question in question time can be disallowed by the Chair if it relates to a matter that's outside the duties of Council. So amongst other things, it deals with the subject matter already answered, is aimed at embarrassing a councillor or a member of Council staff, relates to confidential information, and or if the language is irrelevant, trivial, and a range of other things. So I would caution the community members here who have the opportunity to ask questions to make sure that they ask questions that are able to be answered and not designed to embarrass the council, please.
It wasn't designed to embarrass the council, it provided an option. The rest of the...
Point. If you could... Councillor Di Pietri.
I just wanted to let you know that I don't feel particularly safe given the members of the public's
Nor do our children.
meeting.
Nor do our children feel safe at school.
Given the behaviour last meeting, and so I just wanted to let you know that I'd like to request a brief intermission.
Acknowledged. At this point, oh yes?
Yeah, I also wanted to say that I found the threat, or the implied threat, not acceptable. And look, we have listened very patiently. There were some excellent submissions, members of tonight, and I thought they were done respectfully, and I was listening very carefully, but I'm very disappointed when I hear threatening language, and it's not called for. We understand what you're trying to say.
There was no threats.
But
it was a simple question.
To bring to the table an implied threat was not acceptable.
It was just a simple question.
Sir, thank you. It is being disallowed at this point in time. Thank you.
Perhaps I'll move to my next question, see if I have any luck with this.
No, sorry, we have a point of order still that we may have an adjournment, which I am going to grant for a number of minutes. 5 minutes.
Am I allowed to ask a question?
Yes, Councillor Lyons.
Okay, I've got 2 questions and possibly a way forward. Through you, Deputy Mayor, could I ask officers once again to reiterate that a meeting has been set up between the Mayor and the school? Can I just confirm that?
Through you, Mayor, yes, that is correct, yes.
Right. As a way forward, can I now move that question time be brought to an end? Because I don't see any point, if there's a meeting that's been set up now, I think it's in everybody's interest to sort of dial back a bit here and let that meeting take place so that a communication between the two parties, so that the school and the council can find common purpose, perhaps. So maybe if we bring, because I just don't see any advantage in this council question time continuing if it's going to get everybody upset.
Thank you, Councillor Landis. I will ask the CEO some advice on this matter.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor, and thank you for the question. My advice at this point is that my recommendation would be that Council proceed. I would, however, take the opportunity to remind people that, in particular the current person who's wishing to speak, of the importance of respecting this chamber and the need not to seek to embarrass council or councillors. There are other forums to ask questions of the nature that you're and the tone that you're using. The previous question that you asked, in my view, was not designed to receive an answer. It was cynical at best. And so as long as the questions are respectful and constructive and purposeful, my advice would be that Council continue. I'm also mindful that there are other people here that want to speak on different topics besides Alphington. So perhaps it would be helpful if people could shorten their introductory comments, because this is only my second meeting at Yarra Council and we're going over ground I've heard. So perhaps if people could get to the questions, try to remove the strategy and ask genuine questions for which you're seeking answers. Perhaps if I could, I don't want to get into the debate, but I do think it's important to clarify. I think the fact that there were questions taken on notice at the last council meeting may have been misinterpreted by the community. I've been working in local government for 30 years and it's very common for questions to be taken on notice, and I want to reassure the community here on behalf of the officers and councillors, that's not a strategy. It is about trying to make sure that we provide you the most factual, correct, timely advice that we can. So rather than guess or estimate or get it wrong or inadvertently mislead you by trying to please you this evening, sorry, I've got a cold, it's very common for us to, and on something that's as important as this, it's really important that we give you the best correct answer. So you have to trust that that is in good faith that we're doing that. You are able to help yourselves, and this has been said previously, you are absolutely able to help yourselves if you submit your questions prior to the council meeting, because it gives the organisation time to do the research. Sometimes we can answer questions quickly because we know the issue, but in a city of more than 100,000 people, it's impossible to prepare for every possible question. So it is very common practice, and you'll notice that the two people that submitted their questions, I want to say Esther, but I'm not sure, the very impressive young woman who asked the first question this evening, she'd pre-submitted, so we had an answer prepared. So that's an example of the process. So participating, there is a way to participate if you genuinely are seeking a response. If you're seeking to embarrass or place pressure, then we won't be pulled into that by guessing answers. Thank you, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms Wilkins. I won't ask my second question, and I appreciate the comments of Mr Landers as well, Councillor Landers. What I will say is that there was a question that was also at the end of the question that I just asked. Rather than adding on to that and suggesting that the council is trying to have its cake and eat it too, what I'll simply say is this: the missing piece of this puzzle is not necessarily the communications between this council and Alphington Grammar School. There is also a very large community out there of very concerned parents, family and friends. I can assure this council that this parent group will not go away. And that's because we're united in the protection of our children, united in the protection of our teachers and of our school. And so if this council is willing to reach an agreement with the parent group and the school in combination in relation to this issue, all this goes away. But otherwise, we'll just continue to turn up, we'll continue to email, and we'll continue to fight.
Sorry, point of order. Can you please come to the question? There was no question. Is there anyone else out there that has a question, and not a statement, a question?
Good evening. My name's Philip Pappas. I'm a parent of a child at Alphington Grammar School. My question relates to some comments made in the last council meeting. So during the July council meeting, the advice was that the eastern section of the redundant Old Heidelberg Road was inspected on Monday, July the 4th at approximately 1:15 p.m. And this included the road, curb and channel, footpath and road reserve. No defects were specified or identified under the requirements of the road management plan. Apart from the fact that the inspection date is well past the 26-month inspection period directed by policy, and this is the interesting bit, school security footage of the inspection indicates that the inspectors spent limited time on the section of the road behind the gate. They inspected the drain outside the school gates, meandered down the football field, then glanced at two drains at the end of what remains of the sealed section of the redundant Old Heidelberg Road. To be precise, they spent 53 seconds on the inspection, did not inspect the unsealed section of the road or the road reserve down by the creek at all. So that's 53 seconds, less than a minute. Compliance with the Road Management Act does not merely mean that an inspector is on site, a tick in the compliance box, but that a thorough review takes place of the entire road to ensure that it is compliant with all requirements. So my first question is, do you consider the unsealed land to be part of the redundant Old Heidelberg Road? And if yes, why was the unsealed section not inspected?
Thank you for your question. Again, I'm going to have to say we'll take your question on notice and come back to you in due notice.
Thanks.
Due time.
My second question is, the school recently appointed a surveyor to peg the boundaries of the school to ensure that the fence, which we believe the school will be erecting shortly, accurately reflects both private and public land borders. Given that the borders were not clear during the 4th of July inspection, how did your inspectors know what to inspect? How did your inspectors know which section of land was Old Heidelberg Road and which was private land? And therefore, how accurate, in your opinion, was the inspection that took place?
Once again, thank you for your submission. We'll have to take that on notice and come back to you in due course. Thank you. Do we have any further questions?
Good evening. My name is Peter. I'm an Alphington Grammar School student. I am perplexed as to why the Mayor and her fellow councillors have made the decision to remove the school gate on redundant Old Heidelberg Road that has been protecting me ever since I came to the school at 10 years old. You have made this decision without consulting or notifying the school students. Your community engagement policy states that you enable and encourage community participation. If this is true, then why wasn't my opinion enabled in your supposed consultation process? Why didn't you encourage my safety, opinion and voice on this matter? So I asked the council, did you ever consider me or the other 600 students' opinions? Or were you biased and only consider a select few opinions? Did you ever consider what you would do to ensure my safety and the other 600 students' safety?
Thank you for your submission. A broad consultation process was undertaken under which anyone from the community could have participated, but beyond that, we will have to come back with some further clarity in response to your question. Thank you.
I think it's a pretty simple question, but okay, thank you.
Are there any further questions? Thank you. And once again, we'll ask you please be respectful, mindful that we are accommodating questions here in this forum this evening.
Good evening. My name's Andrew Cootie. I'm a parent of an Alphington student. I've just got a short question for you guys. Over the years, Alphington Grammar's spent much money and time maintaining the safety of the old, redundant part of Old Heidelberg Road. I'm just wondering now, how will the council plan to meet their regulatory requirements in regard to the public safety of that road now that the school would no longer feel obliged to? Thank you.
Thank you. That's a great question and one that we will have to come back to you. Thank you. Are there any further questions? And I'll just also note, as I indicated at the beginning, please be mindful of other questions that have been asked already this evening and try not to repeat. I'm also mindful that we've had a number of submissions this evening that have repeated questions that have been asked at previous council meetings and to which there have already been responses provided previously. So if you could please keep that in mind as part of your submission tonight, it would be appreciated.
Thanks, Mayor. My name is Manuel Simiris. I'm on the school council. I'm an owner and ratepayer of owning the Bendigo Bank building on Queen's Parade at 101 to 103. I'm also on the Finance and Audit Committee of Alphington Grammar. I also sit on the board of the Greek Community, which is the owner of the land known as Alphington Grammar. Now that the school and the council knows that the boundaries exist and Old Heidelberg Road and the decision as to whether the school continue to pay the costs around the 24-hour security guards, repairs to the private land facilities, school lighting to make the area safe. During the last 32 years, the school has spent a significant six-figure sum on the upkeep on the repair of both the sealed and unsealed section of Old Heidelberg Road. This includes repairs to the footpath, repairs to the road itself, drainage, etc. In this same period, the question I have, Mayor, is, in the same period, what was the total amount spent by the council to upkeep the old Heidelberg Road?
Thank you for your question. We'll have to take that one on notice and come back to you in due course.
Okay, my second question, Mayor, is has the council allocated any budget for the necessary infrastructure works needed to build a safe road as per all the regulatory requirements now that the school cannot prohibit any users, including pedestrians, bicycles, e-scooters, skateboards, rollerbladers? There was an issue recently where a utility accessed Old Heidelberg Road and it got bogged and it couldn't get out for 2 days. In light of this, what has the council designated in funding?
Thank you for your question, and once again, we'll have to take it on notice and come back to you on that. Do we have any further questions?
Good evening, my name is Susie Stamos. I'm a parent of a student at Alphington Grammar. Your council website makes mention of a number of advisory committees that enable the community to have input into policy, direction and activities. There are several that I believe are relevant to the Old Heidelberg Road, including the Disability Advisory Committee, the Environmental Advisory Committee, the First Nations Advisory Committee and the Multicultural Committee. My question is, what input was sought from these advisory committees with regards to Old Heidelberg Road, and are there any minutes to their meetings which verify the consultation with members of the committees has taken place?
That's a good question, thank you. Once again, though, we will have to take it on notice and come back to you.
And my second question, which I've condensed, whilst it's not mandatory, attendance to councillors' briefings is seen as better practice. Was there a council briefing in which the Old Heidelberg Road matter was discussed, and if so, how many councillors attended?
So the nature of council briefings are confidential and we can't discuss matters that are disclosed in those, but I might actually defer to the CEO on this matter if there's anything further that you feel you might be able to add.
Through you, Deputy Mayor, I don't think it's likely that we'll be able to reveal who attended what briefings. I just want to be honest. As the Deputy Mayor said, briefings, they're not decision-making forums and they're intended to support councillors to make decisions. So who was in attendance and what was in the briefing papers is not something that we'll be able to share.
Thank you. Do we have any further questions this evening?
My name's Louisa Di Giovanni. I'm a parent of children at Alphington Grammar School. It's still unclear to the parents on the use of the road. The council is yet to explain what measures it will take to clarify the intended use. For example, is it a dog on leash area? Can cyclists pass through the gates on their bikes, or do they have to dismount as is required on Heidelberg Road over the bridge? Can cars now enter via the gate? We're just seeking clarification.
Thank you very much for your question tonight. Once again, we've answered similar questions to this at previous council meetings, but we'll come back to you separate to this and come back to you soon. Thank you.
Good evening, I am Martha Vazenos. I have a child that attends at Alphington Grammar. There are two documents I wish to reference tonight. The first is map number 4, Yarra Planning Scheme, local provision, and the second one is the City of Yarra Open Space Document 2020. When reviewed side by side, I put it to you that many may consider Yarra Council's document misleading. Map 4 of Yarra Planning Scheme is a state government document. It's published by the Victorian Government and it labels Alphington Grammar School with 2 labels, or zones if you like. The first label is SUZ3, which equals Special Use Zone, Schedule 3, and it's a label that's normally attributed to private schools, such as Alphington Grammar. The second label is UFZ, which equals Urban Floodway Zone. Now on to the City of Yarra Open Space Document 2020. At page 23, you attribute a PPRZ label. PPRZ is Public Park and Recreation Zone. Your legend describes it as existing PPRZ zone land. The school, though, is privately owned, yet council misrepresent it on published documents as public. Council's document goes further in brackets to stipulate that it's not open space. It's quite an intriguing coupling of terms. Council, please consider that there is no wonder there is discord in the community. Yarra Council misrepresent to them that Alphington Grammar, in its entirety, is public park and recreation zone. Based on this information, will Yarra City Council consider republishing this document and make a public statement that corrections were required to accurately represent Alphington Grammar School with its true and factual zoning?
Thank you for your question. Once again, we'll have to take that on notice and look into it and come back to you in due course.
I do have another question. Can I please have a moment to access it off my phone? Okay, there's a law that relates to matters relating to land. One of them is Planning and Environment Act 1987. Very recently, there was an amendment to this act. It's titled on your web pages as C269 Amendments to this Act and the Explanatory Report. You often receive advice from committees such as the Merry Creek Management Committee. I understand that there's a councillor that sits on the committee. I believe her name is Councillor Bridget. There's also a related panel report, and I want to specify page 158. In a submission made by Merry Creek Management Committee, they raised issues concerning creeks in the area, so any waterway, rivers, creeks, anything to do with water. On page 158, MCM submitted that Yarra River, Darebin and Merry Creek corridors policies should include a strategy to establish a continuous wildlife habitat, refuge and movement corridor with limited public access along one bank of each waterway. And understanding planning issues along the Merry Creek policy development guidelines for Merry Creek should be included as a policy document. It seems by opening up public access via Alphington Grammar School goes contrary to the advice given by MCMC. Would Council consider re-reflecting on the recommendations made by this committee and revisit this topic of opening up this space to the public? It goes against advice provided by members of your own council group.
Thank you again for your submission this evening. We'll have to take that on notice and come back to you in due course, so thank you.
Thank you.
Are there any further questions?
Good evening, Acting Mayor and the councillors. My question is very simple and very short. The answers to the questions in notice: how will the public access that answers to the questions in notice? Sorry, that might be the procedural question, sir.
Yes, so the responses to the questions asked tonight are published alongside the minutes associated with this meeting, as there have been for previous meetings.
So today's question, supplementary question. So today's question will be available on before the next council meeting?
Yeah, they should be, yes. Unless there are some that we need further time to further investigate, those that we have been able to respond to in that time, we will have published.
Thank you very much. My second question is, in response to the first question, one of the students, I think the captain of AGS, Alfington Grammar School, asked, in response to that question, the acting mayor answered in regards to the removal of the gates, the rationale for removing the gates was to provide access to the local residents to access the creek. How will the residents access the creek without going through, and if I may put this, without trespassing through the schools, ovals, and the sporting grounds? And there is no breeze over there as well.
Thank you for your question. I believe we have responded to a similar question at a prior meeting, but we will come back to you in due course. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Councillor. I'll look forward to that answer before the next council meeting. Thank you.
Councillor Stone.
Mayor, the first question by that submitter was a very valid one, I thought, and if you go back to the minutes that we've approved tonight, all the questions asked last time, next to them it just says the question was taken on notice. So there were no answers published to the last time, which may lead to some of what we're hearing tonight. Can I ask the Executive Manager of Governance through you, if it's the right person, are answers provided directly to the submitters, firstly, and secondly, if they're not in the minutes yet, does that mean that the answers have not yet been found? It would be good to be clear on that, I think.
Through you, Acting Mayor, the questions and answers are published on the website beside the minutes of the last council meeting. They're now published on the website.
Sorry, excuse me. On the website, but not in the minutes?
No.
Okay, thank you for clarifying that.
No. As the Acting Mayor mentioned before, they are published beside the minutes on the public website.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Are there any further questions? I'm sorry, sir, you've already asked your two questions, which is... yes.
I think it's a good question because it's really not clear.
Yes.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I just happened to be in the room, so I'm sorry I'm facing the wrong way. I'm responsible for the publication of the minutes on Council's website and for the publication of outstanding questions, or questions that are taken on notice. So the actual answers to those questions that are taken on notice are not published in the actual minutes, and the reason for that is because the answers weren't provided at the meeting. But they are published alongside the minutes. So if you go to Council's website and have a look at the past council meetings, there's a link there to past council meetings. You can find the agendas, the minutes, and where questions are taken on notice, you'll find all the questions and the answers to them. So that was published for the meeting in question, the previous meeting. Those answers were published middle of last week, and they've been there since. Unfortunately, we haven't been able to directly contact all of the people that asked questions at that meeting, and that is because a number of people didn't provide us with their contact details. We do have contact details for some, and I'm not sure that we've completed the process of reaching out to alert everyone to the presence of those responses. But if you happen to be here in the chamber or watching the live stream and you did ask a question, you will be able to find the answers. They are there right now. Thank you.
And I can confirm that it's an 8-page document and they're very detailed answers where they're there.
Thank you. One more time, are there any further questions this evening?
Thank you. I have a question, but I just want to give some background before I ask it. I think...
Sorry, if you could state your name.
Damien Kiparides.
Thank you.
This issue is closely linked to access to the Darabin Creek Trail. And if you go back to the meeting where this first came up, 4th of August 2020, I think James Tyre brought this up about getting access to the trail. Farm Road was an option, but wasn't concrete at that stage. So council decided, yes, we'll have to look at this. And looking back on it, Councillor Amanda Stone also said that it was a top priority, getting access to the trail, which, you know, I think we all agree that is a top priority. So, with that in mind, and also now that we all know that Farm Road is proceeding, when you look at this issue, opening up those gates doesn't serve any purpose, and in fact created what I believe is an additional safety issue, and I brought it up at the last meeting, and I did look at that link. My question wasn't answered, and all my question was about whether or not council thought that it was a safety issue, and was council concerned about it, because people are entering the creek to get to the Darabin Creek Trail. So let's put that aside. I'll get an answer to that. I think we all know the answer anyway. It should be a concern. But my question now, as a result of all these, is, and the fact that it's top priority to get access to the Darabin Creek Trail, you did provide me with information about what council was going to do. So my question is, has council contacted the Department of Transport to get their opinion on creating a new access from Old Heidelberg Road to the Darabin Creek Trail and building a new bridge?
Thank you very much for that question, and we will have to take that on notice and come back to you. In terms of the prior question that you asked, I'm not sure if your contact details were left with our officers or not, but if you could make sure they are tonight, we'll come back to you on both fronts.
Yeah, thank you, I will. And just the last question, I think Councillor Joly said earlier today about treating things equally. I can't remember what the issue was. The second speaker said something about that, but I agree with him, because you should treat things equally. And if you look at Clark Street, which is also an unmade road, and it goes directly, the unmade part of it, to the Yarra River, but the access there is concrete path. It's got council bins, and it's got even, I think, a seating area. So an unmade road done up like that, and you've got Old Heidelberg Road, which is obviously leading nowhere, but will something like that also be done at Old Heidelberg Road? Is that what is planned?
Once again, thank you. We'll have to take that on notice and come back to you in due course. Thank you.
Thanks for your time.
Do we have further questions this evening?
Mayor and council members, I think the issue here is us as parents can't find the answers to these questions. Is it possible for someone to actually guide us?
Sorry, just if I could ask your name?
Carol Hanna.
Carol Hanna,
Parent,
thank you.
Parent at Alphington Grammar. Are you able to show us how to find these questions? Because a lot of us are struggling to find the answers that you've said that you've answered.
Yes, we can do that.
Through you, Acting Mayor, if you go to the council website and look up council meetings and then scroll down, it will show you the listing of the council meeting dates and the council minutes and agendas. And for the date of the July meeting, it shows the in the listing council minutes, and it will also refer to questions and answers from public question time. So it's a document on that part of the website with the minutes.
Councillor Jolly.
Yeah, just to make it easy, would it be possible for Mr. Rees or Mr. Gilbert to email a link
to those minutes to any one of the residents here, who then can pass it on to their community. Because I know for myself sometimes it can be a little bit difficult to scroll it. If you've got the email of any one of these people and could send that link, they could distribute it amongst their community.
Sorry, yes, that's fine. Sure. As long as we've got the address to send it to, that will be fine. Thank you, Acting Mayor.
Thank you. I'm just mindful of time, and at this point, I'm happy to receive one more question. Is there one further question at this point of time, or have we got through everyone? All right. Thank you very much for everyone for your submission tonight, and we all look forward to coming back to you in due course. Thank you again. Okay, I will now be moving on to item 8.1, Draft Planning Scheme Amendment C91 Yarra, Bridge Road and Victoria Street Built Form Provisions. I'll just pause for a moment while people are exiting the chamber before we get stuck into it. Okay. I'll now ask councillors, would you like an officer report? That's a yes. Over to you.
Thank you, Acting Mayor. I'll just remove my mask so I don't suffocate. Okay, just to quickly summarise, as you'd be aware, the key aim of Draft Amendment 291 is to apply height requirements and other built form outcomes on a permanent basis to the Bridge Road and Victoria Street activity centres, as the interim controls will lapse in March 2023. The purpose of the amendment is to manage development and provide guidance in the planning scheme. Without these controls, the applications would be assessed on a case-by-case basis. The draft amendment was exhibited in September and October of 2021. Council considered submissions at its meeting on the 21st of December 2021. It was then referred to the Yarra Activity Centre Standing Advisory Committee through a 12-day hearing held in April. In late June, Council received the Standing Advisory Committee report, and that was publicly released in July. So we're now up to the final step in the process for Council. Council has the opportunity to form a final position on the amendment. The Minister for Planning will then consider this before she makes a decision on the amendment. So the purpose of this report tonight is for Council to consider the Standing Advisory Committee's recommendations, the officer responses to those recommendations, and to form a position around the amendment. The committee supported most of the changes endorsed by Council on the 21st of December. It commended Council for integrating built form, heritage and access and movement in a single strategic approach. It also considered the background reports to the amendment formed a sound basis for it. The amendment also provides sufficient residential and commercial capacity to meet future demand, and it supported Council's approach to mandatory controls. However, it made a few recommendations around specific sites. Overall, the committee recommended that the amendment be approved as exhibited, subject to changes. Officers support all but 4 of the committee's recommendations. The recommendations that we don't support are the proposed deletion of 2 of the criteria for assessing preferred heights, so that's the best standard and also a standard around private and communal open space. The proposed application of a discretionary height for a property at 35 to 47 Lithgow Street, and that would replace a mandatory height. The application of discretionary heights instead of mandatory heights to the south side of Victoria Street between Church and Lambert, and also between Mackay and Johnson Streets. And finally, the retention of a 6 metre rather than an 8 metre landscape setback on the eastern boundary of the Officeworks site. The Office's recommendation is that Council request the Minister for Planning prepare, adopt and approve a formal planning scheme amendment in the form of the amendment attached to the report, using her powers under Section 20 Part 4 of the Act. A 20 Part 4 amendment is a ministerial amendment without notice. A request for a ministerial amendment is considered appropriate as the draft amendment has been exhibited, submissions received and a public hearing held. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillors, do we have any questions at this point in time? Councillor Jolly.
Thank you, Acting Mayor, through you to the officer. It's a question that you know the answer to, but I just want to get it out on the public record. There's a street in my ward that I'm very conscious of the height limits, and I really support the officer view on this, but I just want you just to confirm, just for the public record for people watching tonight who may not be here, that when we're looking at Lithgow Street in paragraph 66 of the report in the table, it's the second last sort of rectangle box bit of that table. It's also in attachment 2.14, it's sort of repeated, that the committee recommended that we go from a discretionary height of 15 metres for the former cordial factory at 35 to 47 Lithgow Street to a mandatory, rather than a mandatory 50-metre height. And the officers have suggested that that's incorrect, and that the proposed 15-metre mandatory height proposed for this site within DDO 49 and the upper level setback from Lithgow Street facade will ensure that the historical facade and the roof form of the former cordial factory remain prominent elements within the streetscape. And I was just wondering if you could just very, very briefly just explain why you think, and I agree with you, why you think that that mandatory height limit should stay, and we should reject the committee recommendation to turn that into a preferred height limit, please.
Sure. Through you, Acting Mayor. Look, the officer's view is that we have proposed mandatory heights in areas with consistent heritage streetscape and also on some of the individually significant heritage buildings. Our heritage expert at the hearing also supported the application of the mandatory height and the mandatory upper level setbacks, and the comment that we included in the council report was around the fact that that will ensure that the historic facade roof form of the former cordial factory remain prominent elements within the streetscape. The other thing that we note is that this area of Lithgow Street has some sensitivity. So the height acknowledges that the building itself is individually significant and also acknowledges that it surrounds in terms of the low scale area around it, the fact that there's detached dwellings of heritage significance next to it, and also the school across the road, which is on the Victorian Heritage Register.
Thank you.
Are there further questions from councillors at this time? I'll now open it up to submissions, and I believe we have one submission registered, and that would be for Lindy. Thank you. You have up to 5 minutes. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Acting Mayor. I'd just like to make comment around the DDOs, and in particular Precinct 2, the Bridge Road South DDO 42. But my suggestion really needs to be an overarching expectation for all Yarra City residences. The DDOs are not specific enough for residents or developers. The way they can be interpreted means many proposals are designated for VCAT, either by the developer or by the residents. So I'm not going to talk about heights and setbacks, and I'd like to point out that I'm not a NIMBY. I didn't even know what a NIMBY was until a fake social media account accused me of being one, so I had to Google it. So, but what I want considered by council members is to amend the transitional expectation at the rear of the development to residential areas beyond the rear laneway. Like, we have the expectation that you'll protect and enhance the integration with residential neighbourhoods through quality, shared local roads and landways networks and appropriate vehicle access outcomes that will provide safe pedestrian linkages. Now, I don't speak policy, so I sort of expect you to cover this off and just not to look at it with blinkers at the development site, but it needs to be looked at the impacts to the surrounding streets and laneways and neighbourhoods behind it. So the DDOs stipulate that vehicular entrance is to be at the side or rear of the development and not from Bridge Road, for example, which makes perfect sense. But what doesn't make sense is that rear laneways are expected to become thoroughfares and there's no consideration for the feeder streets to these laneways. These are often shared spaces which are used as pedestrian paths, bike paths and places for neighbours to stop for a chat, families pushing prams and kids learning to ride a bike. The wording needs to be amended or added for situations where proposed developments abuts and accesses the residential road or laneway network. Situations where our front doors and garages open out directly onto the laneway. So I could do your homework and sprout off section 1103 of Appendix C in the report, but that's sort of what's going to take up my 5 minutes. So what I'm seeking for is further objective in the underpinning narrative of the DDO. So, for example, in non-policy speak, an additional point to the vehicular access requirements. Under the point, development should provide vehicular access from rear lanes or side streets where appropriate, which is very broad. Just add in something like the rear access lane must not draw vehicular traffic through adjoining residential streets or shared spaces, or refer to section blah blah of the transport report for further clarity. Appendix E in the report, which I'm going to refer to, where the committee recommended a version of clause 11.03(1)(l). I think it's page 124, under the heading Precinct 2, Bridge Road South. It could say something or add something to effect, noting the traffic engineering assessment and where envisaged development abuts accesses the local road or laneway network, protect and enhance the integration with the residential neighbourhoods through quality shared local roads and laneway networks, and appropriate vehicle access outcomes that will provide safe pedestrian linkages. And you can even add bicycles in there as well if you like, but it's up to you. I'm just raising the same concerns as in the application of Goldfields versus Yarra in respect to potential traffic infiltrating through the local road network. I'd like to refer to the strategic objective as well. I think it's Objective 5 in the Yarra Council's council plan, that around the Yarra transport network is sustainable and recognises the streets are important shared public spaces. Transport and movement is accessible, safe and well connected, and that Yarra prioritise sustainable and active transport to help people move safely and sustainably through and within our municipality. But thank you for listening to me, and I just hope it didn't jump around too much, but you consider a recommendation to protect the unique organic complexities of our residential areas abutting new development. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your submission. Councillor Stone, did you have a question? No?
If there are no further submissions, yes, I do.
I'll put it out to the floor to see if there are. Are there any other people that would like to make submission to this item tonight? Councillor Stone.
I guess I wanted to applaud that submission because it made so much sense, and it is one of the issues that we are grappling with on a bit-by-bit basis over and over and over again as our laneways are becoming appropriated by more intense development, and it's reaching a bit of a pressure cooker situation with some developments. So I'm not sure if my question is to Ms Osborne as Acting Director or who it's to, but I know, Councillor Crosland, you have an amendment to the proposal for tonight that partly addresses Lindy's issue, but my question is broader, and whether there is any strategic work that's planned around how we approach laneways, particularly in their role in facilitating all the things we need laneways to do, as well as accommodate new development, because they are quite different from streets.
Ms Osman, would you be best placed to respond to that?
Anyone will do. Or you can take it on notice.
Through you, Acting Mayor, I would prefer that we do take that question on notice. We do have a transport action plan that we are working on, but I would propose a more fulsome response rather than one on the night.
And can I suggest that the local livable streets project would also be part of that response?
Thank you, Councillor Stone. Duly noted. Councillor Jolly.
Yeah, just through you to Ms Osman again. Just to back up Councillor Stone, last Tuesday night, Councillor Landis, Councillor Stone, Councillor Ivor on PDC. One of the agenda items was Bridge Road. You're obviously you're all over that. And the laneway at the back was quite a contentious issue on the north side, east-west. And the thing that was going through my head is that we've allowed access and egress on sort of even more narrow laneways through the city of Yarra. And if we were to do anything there, like in terms of trying to move the access point to Coppin Street, would be hammered at VCAT because we've already approved ones with narrower laneways. So can you, when you're preparing your response to Councillor Stone's question, can you look at that agenda, that item, that application last Wednesday night, and the dilemmas that this faces? Because as we're getting more and more development in Yarra, these laneways are going to be under even more intense, in particular in Cremorne and in South Collingwood, but not only there.
Do we have any further questions at this time? Councillor Stone.
Yes, I just want to ask the officer presenting the report about the revised recommendation for the rear of I think it's 146 to 148 Bridge Road, near Lower Terrace anyway. And I note that the recommendation is to increase the maximum height because it's a long block and because it won't interfere with views to the Palaco side or heritage views from the front. But it does have an impact at the back. And I note that it's not next to sensitive residential areas, but all development has an impact to the rear. So did officers assess the impact of a higher built form right at the back of this, where it stretches right into the suburb, if you like?
Through you, Deputy Mayor. Those sites actually abut a longer site that backs onto Lennox Street, which is also at the proposed height of 21 metres. The controls, I guess, address issues of building separation. So where we've got windows or even buildings over a certain height, then those separation distances would apply. The built form controls, we did do modelling for those, but they weren't sort of designed as such, so we didn't go in and design any applications. Our view is that we think that the controls as they stand would provide a good basis and the building envelope for development at that height to the rear.
Thank you.
Do we have any further questions? Okay. Oh, yes, Councillor Stone.
I have one more, and I have raised it offline, but I will raise it for the public record. There have been some submissions we've received this week which have spoken about the process, and I wondered if one of the officers could perhaps explain, because I note that there's a revised officer recommendation to address this specifically, that who the decision maker is here and what council's role is in that process. Please.
Through you, Acting Mayor. Yes, we've received 2 submissions in relation to the report being considered tonight. So they're from submitter 69 and submitter 118. So officers have proposed to revise the recommendation. The Minister will make the final decision on the report. So we've proposed to add an additional recommendation that requires Council to forward this correspondence to DELP and also to the Minister to enable the Minister to consider it before making decisions under the 20 Part 4. I'd also add that there have been numerous opportunities throughout the process for submitters to participate. So we've obviously, the draft amendment has been exhibited. We've also had the hearing by the committee, and we've also given submitters the opportunity, or anyone the opportunity, to present at the various council meetings that the amendment's been considered at. We note that this is a draft amendment process, so it's not a formal amendment process. So Council's providing its views to the Minister on the form of the amendment that it would like to see approved. The Minister for Planning will then consider and approve the final form of the amendment through the 20 Part 4, which is that ministerial amendment. Yeah, does that answer it?
Thanks. It does, thanks very much.
Do we have any further questions at this point in time? Okay. At this point in time, I'm looking for a way forward, and I have one of those, and that is to move the officer recommendation with amendment, which is now up on screen. I will now briefly speak to those amendments. That we support the officer recommendations, but also have a number of adjustments which are in DDO 41 to 50 inclusive, retain the following criteria in building height requirements which apply where a proposal exceeds the preferred maximum building height in Plan 1, which were recommended for deletion by the Standing Advisory Committee, to include excellence for environmental sustainable design measured as minimum best project score of 70%, provision of end-of-trip facilities, including secure bicycle parking, locker and shower facilities and change rooms in excess of the requirements of Clause 52.34. Housing for diverse household types, including people with disabilities, older persons and families, through the inclusion of varying dwelling sizes and configurations. Accessibility provisions, objectives that exceed the minimum standards in Clause 55.07 and or 58 as relevant, and communal open space provision that exceeds the minimum standard in Clause 55.07 and 58.03, and or secluded private open space provision that exceeds the minimum standards in Clause 55.07 and 58.05. Secondly, to change the overshadowing requirements in overshadowing requirements from a preferred to a mandatory requirement for the following areas of public open space. In DDO 41, Alexander Reserve, and in DDO 47, Butler Street Park. And in Clause 11.031L, activity centres, majors, activity centres, under both Bridge Road, Richmond and Victoria Street, Abbotsford, include the following policy. Consider further opportunities for quality shared zones, enhancements to the laneway network and vehicular access outcomes that will provide safe pedestrian and cycle-friendly linkages. At this point in time, I will be looking for a seconder. Yes?
I'll ask a question to officers. I haven't seen this proposed Part 2 about changing the overshadowing provisions to those two parks. I wondered if officers could comment on those, please.
Sure. Through you, Acting Mayor. As you know, we exhibited the overshadowing controls for those two parks as discretionary controls. So obviously mandatory would be a change from what we've exhibited. Through our testing, back when we were developing the controls, the view was that the heights and the other controls that we proposed around them should be able to achieve the overshadowing controls.
So does that mean discretionary control should be able to manage it?
That's what we exhibited. So
Right.
Our view was that discretionary allowed for some flexibility in case there was, say, existing shadow or some issues like that.
And is there any problem with changing that to mandatory at this point?
Look, the main issue is that it hasn't been exhibited, and also whether that minister will agree to it.
Are there any further questions at this point in time? Okay, I'll put it back to the councillor group. I'm looking for a seconder. Councillor Di Pietri. Okay. Do you second the... Yeah, okay, thank you. I'll now speak to the motion. First off, thank you to officers for their presentation tonight and the preparation of the report, and for all the work that's gone into developing this piece of work more broadly. Further, thank you to submitters this evening, and also to everyone that has participated throughout the consultation process, their engagement with councillors, where they've reached out, where they've made submission at previous meetings. The whole process has been quite extensive and it's been a huge undertaking, so a thank you to everyone involved. It's been really pleasing to read the committee's report and their support for the work that's been undertaken as part of these proposed controls. Council has sought to take on the majority of the recommendations of the committee, and these design and development overlays will seek to establish permanent built form controls that will shape the future development of land in proximity of both Bridge Road and Victoria Streets. The built form controls include preferred and mandatory provisions, with mandatory provisions applied where they could be justified wherever possible. And it seeks to respond to an existing built form where we have a heritage context, sensitive interfaces, but there is room for growth and change in some locations, and it's seeking to find that balance. These are rich, dynamic areas that are home to long-established communities, and I'm really keen to see these out in practice. There's a number of amendments, as you would have heard, and these are seeking to be a bit more considerate in terms of where the preferred heights are being exceeded, that a greater range of inclusions have to be achieved, that the overshadowing of open space not be optional, it's mandatory that it cannot be overshadowed, and that we're also seeking to provide better outcomes for the surrounding laneways and network of smaller streets and the interfaces between emerging developments and existing developments. So where you might have existing residential frontages to a laneway, that there's greater consideration to that and how people walk and use and cycle through that network to make them possibly shared zones, but overall a much more considered environment for everyone to enjoy. I think these controls go a long way to improving the outcomes that we'll see in these areas in future, and I commend this motion to my colleagues for their support. Would you like to speak to this?
Thank you, Acting Mayor. I just wanted to reiterate your thanks to officers, to submitters and to the Standing Advisory Committee for their work. And also thank you to your Deputy Mayor, Acting Mayor, for your amendments, which I support and encourage other councillors to support as well. Thank you.
Are there any speakers against? No? All right, I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? And that is carried unanimously. Thank you, colleagues. We'll just now pause for a moment to allow those that had cited a conflict of interest to be able to re-enter the room. Hello. Oh, there we go. Fantastic. We'll get back into it now. All right, we're now moving on to notices of motion, and there have been none listed. And under 10, petitions and joint letters, there have been none listed under this item either. Questions without notice. This is an opportunity. Oh, yes, Councillor Jolly.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt your introduction to that, but just one question without notice. Well, it's actually two questions, but I'll combine them into one to Ms. Osman, I think, as Acting Director of Planning, which is not exactly the right term, but I think everybody knows what I mean. I've had email communication with Ms. Osman today about this matter, but I think it's important to get it on the public record. The first thing is if Ms. Osman, I mean, obviously in the transport strategy we passed at the last council meeting unanimously, it was in there about the importance, a council's position is to encourage the development of infrastructure in terms of EV, electric vehicle chargers. So my first question is, could you please explain to this meeting or report to this meeting about the impending public chargers that we're expecting? I can't remember the number, but I think it's over a dozen that we're expecting to be up and running in the city of Yarra by January of next year, which for such a small geographical municipality is quite impressive. And I was just wondering if you could, because some of them, there's different providers, if you could just go over what's going on there. And the second one, my second and final question is, I take it you're aware Port Phillip are doing a small trial, I think it's 12 residents, and that comes out of Bedfordshire, which is like Luton and Bedford in the UK, in central Britain, about this idea of a curbside charger where the cable comes out, you store it away, so it's not going to be vandalised, and it's no trip hazard. It's, I think you know how they operate. There's obviously a lot of issues that come with it, like the cost, which is paid for by the person who owns the car. Insurance issues, which Port Phillip have got a plan for. So my second question is, are officers looking at the Port Phillip trial, and when at some stage in the short to medium term will report back to councillors as to what they think of that trial, whether it's useful for us to look at or not useful for us to look at? So they're my two questions. If you could tell us what you think about that, please.
Through you, Acting Mayor. First question. There are currently 6 publicly available off-street electrical car chargers within Yarra, and Council is constructing 2 new ones with 2 charging points each. As part of the DELT program at the Fitzroy Town Hall and Richmond in the Docker Street off-street car park near Swan Street. There's also a number of private companies who are also looking at installing electrical charging points throughout Yarra. And this will bring the total number of public charging stations in Yarra to 14 by January 2023. Your second question, officers are aware of the curbside electrical charging trial by the City of Port Phillip, and we've been in discussions with the Port Phillip on that, and they're keeping us abreast of any developments. We're currently awaiting the results of the trial, and we'll give Council more information to make a considered decision on this topic once we have that.
Are there any further questions? All right, thank you. We now move on. Oh, yes, Councillor Stone.
I thought you were addressing it over there. I do have a question without notice, please, and it's to the Director of City Works. And it's about the fact that BirdLife Australia is undertaking a campaign that many people will be aware of, urging people to contact their local council to encourage them to cease their use of second-generation anticoagulant rodenticide, in other words, rat poison, which is a particular kind that doesn't kill vermin immediately, but makes them easier prey for important apex predators in our ecosystem, like powerful owls and so on, who then ingest the rats and die. And it's a major, major problem for wildlife in Australia at the moment. These anticoagulant poisons are banned or being phased out in Europe and the US, but they are readily available in supermarkets and Bunnings here. So my question is, given the campaign, and we're likely to be contacted by keen biodiversity folk, does Yarra Council use these pesticides? And if so, what is the plan to phase them out?
Mr. Levers.
Thank you, Mayor, and Deputy Mayor, and thanks, Councillor Stone, for the question. So second-generation anticoagulant rodenticides are not in use by council staff or contractors in open space settings, so not in our parks and gardens or at Burnley Golf Course. We understand that they are used by some of our contractors to manage pests in council buildings, and we're seeking further information on the levels of use, the alternative options available and the implications of those options in terms of cost and efficiency and the like. Following early investigation, we believe that there might be some alternatives that we can explore, so we'll do that in conjunction with those contractors. So we may make a change based on that. We also understand the Commonwealth Government agency that regulates the sale of rodenticides have commenced a review of anticoagulant rodenticides, and they'll make a determination in 2024 in relation to whether those will be available. But we would expect to make a decision on our use in advance of that.
Thank you. Be good news if it was sooner, but 2024 is pretty good. Thank you.
Are there any further questions, councillors?
I've just got a point of order. The quorum is 5 or 4?
5.
Okay.
All right, we'll now move on to item 12, delegates' reports, and I believe we have one from Councillor Stone.
And it will be quick. Councillor Crosland, Councillor Nabbit and myself attended the Australian Local Government Association National General Assembly in June. This report's a little bit late. We were there for 3 days. We went with 1,000 other delegates from across the country, and we went primarily to vote on motions that Yarra had put to the National General Assembly, but also to speak with colleagues from around the country on topics of common interest, to share experiences and ideas, and also to advocate, because once a lot of people are in Canberra speaking about local government, there are usually lots of very constructive meetings with various other people who are based in Canberra. The theme of this year was Partners in Progress. It was shortly after the election of a new federal government, and there's great anticipation about how this new government might work in partnership with local government. The previous government had removed local government from a number of key forums. They'd abandoned the Australian Local Government Forum, and ALGA has been advocating for that to be reconvened. So there's a commitment to do that. There's also a commitment to have a minister in Cabinet with Catherine King, who's the Minister for Local Government, which is important. And as an aside, there are also commitments to work with local government on climate action and disaster risk management and resilience building in communities, and these are all big issues that are facing all of us. None of us can do it alone, and we really do need to work in partnership with the federal government. Our 4 motions were all adopted without any debate, which is a really good sign. And just some highlights from 4 highlights I pulled out, because it was I won't talk about past conferences, but this one was very good. And quite inspiring in terms of really getting to grips with the role of local government and the fact that nobody else can do what local governments do. If they weren't there, there would be nobody to step in and do it. And that's more than just the roads, rates and rubbish. It's about planning for what communities need in the long term, putting resources and effort into that, delivering it and doing it on a not-for-profit basis. No other organisation does that, and nobody would do it if local governments didn't exist, so they're pretty important. But the 4 highlights were the return of the Australian Council of Local Governments, really important, commitment to increasing the tax share, the financial assistance grants, the National General Assembly passing a motion to support the Uluru Statement of the Heart, and that was before last weekend's announcement. The Assembly being addressed by the Ukrainian ambassador, a real live wire, and the Assembly passing a motion of solidarity with the Ukrainian people and their right to democratic decision-making for themselves. And finally, the Cities Power Partnership launched a local leaders program. I was able to speak to that group, which was really a privilege, and Councillor Crosland and myself signed up as local leaders for climate action. So I move that the delegates' report be accepted, and also Councillor Mohammed or Crosland might like to say a little bit as well. And I know they'll be quick too.
Thank you very much, Councillor Stone. Councillor Mohammed.
Well, for me, it was my first time there, so I got to see a lot of different people coming from different backgrounds, and I would say it was a bit more different than the Parliament, because I saw a lot more diversity, and the local government actually spoke for itself when it came to representing its people, because they had different people from different backgrounds. Also, it was a great platform for Council to advocate on a range of really important issues on behalf of our communities. And all in all, I think it was great networking and to hear from different perspectives, and just to get ideas on how other council or councillors do things differently and what we could take on board from there. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Just to echo both my colleagues, it was a fantastic opportunity to engage with colleagues from across this country, and really appreciate the opportunity to attend representing the City of Yarra. We'll just put that to the vote, that it just be... sorry, yes, we need a seconder. Councillor Mohammed. All right, we'll put it to the vote then. And that's carried unanimously. Thank you. And we now are up to 13 general business. Are there any general business motions? No? All right, thank you. And on to 14, urgent business. Are there any urgent business motions? With that, that brings us to a close of this meeting. So thank you to everyone at home that's tuning in, and thank you to everyone that attended tonight and to everyone that is here right now. Have a wonderful evening.